Entrepreneurially Thinking is a presentation of BioSTL and CET, Center for Emerging Technologies, with raregem-productions, changing the way you view new ventures, including you on the pathway to success with your business in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. Here's your hosts, Cheryl and Christy. Now let's get thinking entrepreneurially.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast. Our goal is to energize your entrepreneurial mindset and create pathways for business success in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. I'm Christy Maxfield.
And I'm Dr. Cheryl Watkins-Moore, the lead for our Bioscience Entrepreneurial Inclusion Initiative here in St. Louis. Hey, girl, we are back.
We are. We're back for season 7.
Woohoo!
I've been looking ahead at our scheduling, and before the end of the year, we will have recorded 100 episodes.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
We're coming up to our 100th, guys.
Oh, my God. We'll count you down as we get close.
And we've got some great guests lined up.
You know, we've always had an amazing array of people on the show, and I feel like as we get better, they get better. It's just been...
And it's just funner.
Goodness. It's funner. It's the most funnest. And so in that fun lineup, we have all these intriguing guests and these fun interviews and these new shows, and we have to thank you for listening and being part of the Entrepreneurially Thinking family. We're making an impact, and the only way we can do that is through your listening support and through the support of our founding sponsors, CET and BioSTL.
Yes.
So we thank them, and we encourage you to check out their websites, see what they're doing. We're heading into the fall with
lots
CET
of great stuff.
And all the Square One programming. Vision Symposium in October, which is huge.
Arlen Hamilton. She'll be here in St. Louis.
I've got such a girl crush.
My gosh.
Every time I see a promo for it on social, and I'm like, and Arlen Hamilton.
And she'll be here.
I'm so excited. So please continue to tune in. You can find us where you find all your favorite podcasts. So give a shout out to your friends and invite them to subscribe on iTunes, Spreaker, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you find your faves.
Wherever you are, we want to be.
And we have some faves going on in this room today.
Yes. So I'm going to start with this little tidbit.
Yeah.
American high school basketball coach Morgan Wooten is credited for the famous quote, "Leadership starts at the top." Activist Mahatma Gandhi is attributed for the stirring charge for each of us to be the change you wish to see in the world. Both of these leaders redefined their communities. They altered culture and they transformed lives. Today, we are joined by an awesome friend, colleague, inspirational woman.
Yes.
Desiree
Somebody
Coleman.
who we're lucky to call all those things.
Yes. She embodies the same zeal for positive community change as these transformational leaders.
No doubt.
She lives the adage, leadership is not a position or title. It's an action and example. Desiree's calling is to inspire leaders and transform communities. She's a coach, volunteer, and mentor. She works diligently to support, amplify, and elevate diverse leaders in her community and beyond. She is our community good multiplier. So we're going to learn more about what Miss Desiree is up to when we come back. So as I always say, stay listening.
BioSTL is a proud founding sponsor of this Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast, and we want you to know all about the great things they are up to. BioSTL Fundamentals is an entrepreneur development program targeted to founders wishing to start a company in the bioscience space, including therapeutic products, diagnostic products, medical devices, animal and crop agriculture products, and research tools. Participants earn resources by achieving specific coaching goals. You can learn more about BioSTL Fundamentals by visiting biostl.org. And for your renewed and continuing support, BioSTL, we say thank you.
Desiree Coleman, Good Multiplier. Entrepreneurially thinking to me means having a vision for what you want to do, keeping that vision at the forefront of your mind, and meditate on it, writing it down, figuring out how you can live that thing out day by day.
As Cheryl said, joining us today is Desiree Coleman, founder and CEO of Good Multiplier. Good Multiplier is mobilizing the next generation of leaders, change makers, and innovators who will multiply the community good and create neighborhood level change. It's an intensive, customized 10-month training program. 10 months, people. Good Multiplier accelerates the effectiveness of organizations that solve issues in communities of color.
That's,
it's right up our alley. If she hadn't done it, somebody else, we would need to be getting somebody else to do it for her. So her fellows are being challenged to stretch their own leadership and extend themselves into their peer learning community, and they're pushed to actively develop themselves and their organizations through practical hands-on experience.
That's
Desiree,
so awesome.
we are so glad you are here
today.
Yay.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, my God. Well, I know there's just so much on your plate, and that Good Multiplier is now, what is this, the second?
Second
This is
cohort.
our second cohort.
Oh, my gosh.
Full disclosure, she asked me to speak at one of the sessions later so I have the opportunity to see this all firsthand.
Yay. It's awesome. And I'm so excited as we prepare to launch this next cohort.
So you got to tell us about how did this whole...
What is this?
Yeah.
I mean, we know it's 10 weeks, but where did this come from?
Right.
Yeah.
What inspired you? How did you get it
How'd
off
you
the
come
ground?
up with the name, too?
All that.
I appreciate it. First of all, I need to just kind of hire you guys and put you on my shoulders because that intro was amazing. So thank you.
And you have to thank Jade, our producer,
Jade
to make
is
sure that we
awesome.
are well prepared. And
Jade is awesome.
we're very good. Happy to be working with her.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having me. I'm from St. Louis and really I left here at 18 and said, I'm never coming back. And
You wiped the dust off of your
young
feet.
one.
I did, right? And, there were lots of reasons for that, but I really felt like being a woman of color in this community, I would need to have a ton of experiences to be able to lead. So my travels led me to Mizzou, where I went to undergrad and did business there and decided, you know what, this is not exactly it. Like there's something more. I want to be better connected. I read a story about Marva Collins when I was in third grade.
She's a Chicago woman.
Yes, she is.
She's a Chicago teacher.
And just educating these young black men. And I never kind of lost sight of that. So while I was at Mizzou, I did AmeriCorps and got a chance to be a literacy tutor. And that was the first time really of kind of understanding rural poverty.
Yes.
Because in my life experience, I had only observed it with one demographic in one way. And so understanding that children need lots of different things from lots of different communities was really eye-opening. I also did AmeriCorps and had a chance to go to a Native American reservation and understand some of the conditions that exist there. And I did another sort of service learning trip to Appalachia and got to understand. So at this point, my mind is blown.
Very different.
Right?
Yeah.
My mind is blown. And I'm like, how can I put this to good use? So ended up, I decided I wanted to do public administration. So I went to grad school at Syracuse and
Cold.
It is cold. Can we just say that? Honestly, literally how I found out about Syracuse, somebody handed me a book and they're like, these are the best public administration schools. So I was like, eeny, meeny, miny, or what's the top one? And I picked Syracuse.
Exactly.
That is literally how I picked. And somebody was like, well, it snows there. And I'm like, it snows in St. Louis. I'll be okay.
Not the
It's winter like forever.
Nobody told me.
See, in St. Louis, you can play around with a little winter coat.
Yeah.
You need a big winter coat.
To the floor.
Right.
To the floor. And so, it started snowing in October and didn't stop until May. So
Exactly. But it was the best school.
it was great. It was a great experience. It's 1 year they get you in and out. And so I was like, I'm ready to kind of take on the world and serve. Ended up in D.C. So started there in a management fellowship. And basically, you rotate to different government agencies. And my last stop was in juvenile justice, which was just a phenomenal way to start my career because I got to work with communities that wanted the best for their children, didn't have the resource. I got to work with school systems that wanted to do the best by kids, weren't sort of organized to do that. And around that time, our agency won a $3 million competitive grant from the U.S. Department of Labor. So I got to lead that project and build out the systems and supports and structures that were really, focused on how to intentionally support young people. And
was this specifically focused on D.C.?
It was D.C. and juvenile justice young people and reconnecting young people to school and work. So I had this huge windfall of cash and part of my job was to re-grant it. So that was my real first experience experience in sort of pushing money into communities. And, you know, it was really interesting to see kind of who responded to the RFP and how the money got deployed and who we worked with.
Sure.
But it was just sort of this moment of like, okay, you know, we have to implement this grant. Let's keep moving. So did some wonderful things through that effort, brought wonderful partners to the table. And quite frankly, I probably wouldn't have ever left DC. DC is amazing.
It is.
It's always something to do, and there's so many different cultures there.
Were you there when our president, the
Was
real
I
president, was there?
Were you there during President Obama's administration? I believe is what she's asking.
I think she's asking during the golden years. Yeah, we were out at inauguration. We went out at like 4 a.m. to like witness history and be able to tell our kids that, you know, we were there.
That's
awesome.
That's great.
So yeah, but I met my husband while I was there. Had our daughter. Right? DC was good for me. But DC is expensive.
Yes,
DC
it is.
is very expensive.
Yes, it is.
And so we were kind of like adding up, you know, 5 + 5 is not equal 1. So let's just go back to St. Louis, which is how I came back, kind of ate my words and came on back. So that's about.
But you brought back such great experience having, you know, the Native American, the Appalachian, and then the city and working in a city environment.
Yeah.
That is wonderful.
Yeah. Like I said, I was really grateful to start my career there because I got a chance to understand what communities need. So, you know, my thought, so kind of fast forward, I ended up at United Way. When I came back, anyone knows anything about United Way in this community, it just kind of touches a little bit of everything. Or, you know, over there is great. And so got a chance to support a ton of initiatives that were going on there. And I met everyone. Right. I meant like everyone.
It's a good place to come home to. Right. And get reacclimated.
Yes.
Central hub for a lot of different activities.
It was. And so it was just a great experience. And sort of during that time, I was able to connect with the corporation where I ended up doing some corporate funding and did philanthropy there for 5 years. Again, sort of deploying resources in the community while I was at United Way. Also did like supplemental grant reviews, and so got a chance to see from a governmental standpoint, from a nonprofit standpoint, and then from a corporate standpoint, what it looks like to partner with communities and get resources there.
Was deploying capital, whether you call it philanthropy or regranting, was that part of your original vision of what it meant to work in community? I mean, you did this fellowship, you did public administration, but did you see yourself as on the side of deploying capital? Because my experience is that most people who go into the nonprofit sector or in the public service sector don't necessarily see the redistribution or the deployment of capital as part of the work. They're usually on the receiving end, not the deploying end.
Exactly.
And I'm just curious how if that's one of the things you saw yourself doing all along.
So interestingly enough, I speak fluent Spanish. So that was partly how I picked my major.
Okay.
Because I said I have to pick something that has Spanish in it. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So I'm going to pick business. So I chose international business, right?
Okay.
Wow. And this is amazing. So you took Spanish undergrad as well as high school?
Yeah.
Okay, my kid's been in it for like 50 years, and the only thing he knows is "Hola, ¿cómo estás?"
Yeah, listen, it's
what
going
am
to
I
come
doing?
back one day. You're going to plop them in this plane one day, and it's all going to come rushing back.
I'm praying.
It's going to come back.
Because "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" ain't it?
It's a start. It's a start.
And it's more than I have.
Right.
So.
Right.
It's a start. So I mean, sort of the epiphany I had my senior year was that I was doing internships, and I worked in a consumer goods company. They sold bread. And part of
bread.
Right? But do you love bread in the way that, like, you care about the margin and where it's positioned and if there's, right?
No, I care about the crusty, crustiness and the squishiness on the inside and how well the butter goes on. But I can tell you, I do not think about the margins. I really don't. No.
Right. And so that was sort of my, the margin of the bread.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But so I kind of realized that, like, business in the traditional sense was just not for me. Right. Because I didn't care in that way, and I wanted to be connected with community. So during that internship, though, I was working in a marketing department, and they didn't have a corporate social responsibility. So they wanted someone to think about what it could look like and do some research and present a recommendation. So I did that. midway through the summer, we got acquired by what is now Sara Lee, and then they flew me to Chicago to present my recommendations, and so I learned about this field called corporate social responsibility, and I was like, well, they're helping people and they're getting money out, so for me, it was like a perfect marriage. That was in college, and so it was kind of one of those things where this would be cool one day.
Yeah.
So
it's just reemerged in different ways. It sounds like throughout your career.
The business side really helped because a lot of people don't have that business side. Yeah. They look at it from the public service side, and marrying both of them, you have the structure in order to really be effective in implementing. It's great.
And the other side of that question then is, I asked you was the deployment of capital ever in your in your DNA? It was being an entrepreneur part of the picture when you sat back and thought about.
No, that's a great question, but I want to go back and answer your question. Because
all that
because I feel like because I started my career in community, literally working in some of the most under-resourced communities in the nation's capital, I understood what fragile families look like. I understood what under-resourced communities look like. I understood what it looked like when systems failed young people in entire communities. Yes. I understood how the policies we create advantage or disadvantage a certain groups. So my lens was completely different. So in approaching philanthropy, it was not about, where can we get a good press release, or where can we, it was truly always from the sense of how can we support a community need. Right. Obviously, there's always going to be a business need, but how can we kind of marry those? And because my viewpoint is always about helping communities, again, sort of going back to my own personal ethos and mission, which is to transform communities, I always sought to, how can these dollars help further a community need or do some community good?
Awesome. I love the fact that you talk about it's not about the branding or what the company is going to get from this, because a lot of people in those positions, they wear that marketing hat and they have to answer from above to say, we checked the box, we put some money out here. But you're truly looking at impact.
Right. I mean, now don't get me wrong. My background is in marketing, right? So my emphasis is marketing. So there is this sort of, you have to be able to show ROI, but that can't be the only thing.
Exactly.
So I would always say, if I have found the sweet spot between what the company wants and what the community needs, I've been successful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so trying to figure out how to support what was going on.
Very cool.
So having answered that initial question, when did entrepreneurship become part of the equation of transforming communities?
When 5 plus 5 didn't equal 10.
Yes.
No, that's what got her back to coming back to St. Louis.
Right. I would say that I was fortunate. I met a woman by the name of Crystal Jackson. She runs an organization that's now called Mosaic Genius. And her organization is centered on connecting high net worth individuals, also philanthropists, also people who work in foundations and institutions with high impact nonprofit leaders who are people of color.
Oh, wow.
So she hosts a convening. And in that space, I got to meet literally some of the most amazing people ever. Right. So people who have founded organizations that were shifting a narrative, that were meeting an unmet need, that were filling spaces where it was truly needed. So I'm thinking about Morgan from Girl Trek and Aaron Walker from Camelback. And so I got to, spend some one-on-one time with these founders, and I'm like, they are amazing. Right? They're amazing. And literally, they saw a community need and did something about it. And I was like, wow. And so right around that time also was when Michael Brown was killed. And I sort of found myself, with the realization that I work in corporate America, that I don't necessarily represent only myself, and that everything that I do really is, by de facto connected to my organization. And so there are certain places and spaces where my corporation may feel more comfortable with me being in or not, right? And so I sort of realized that personally, being from St. Louis, literally watching every night on the TV, CNN, like in disbelief of what I'm seeing, I said, I have to do something. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what won't get me fired, but I have to do something.
It's taking that step and walk of faith.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and so
Step out.
that was it. So really it was meeting these amazing leaders and individuals who had founded organizations, and then at the same time grappling with what was going on in my own community, and me sort of stepping back to say, like, what am I good at? What do I know? And what is needed?
Right.
And sort of those three, with those three questions in mind, emerged this idea of like understanding how resources get deployed, and, sort of reflecting on my time working in district government and watching who got RFPs, reflecting, during my time in nonprofit and both in corporate. And I just sort of realized that there was an opportunity to really intentionally focus on leaders of color in this community and help them grow their nonprofit capacity.
In St. Louis, which is nice.
And we're going to come right back and find out more about that.
Yes, I'm so excited. We'll be talking about Good Multiplier.
CET, the Center for Emerging Technologies, is a proud founding sponsor of this entrepreneurially thinking podcast. We want you to know all about the great things they are up to. Square One offers 2 training options. Square One Ignite, a 4-week program created to help founders quick start their business model validation process. Or Square One Bootcamp, an in-depth 10-week, 50-hour program that combines formal instruction with hands-on learning, networking, and mentoring. To learn more about Square One Bootcamp or Square One Ignite, visit CETSTL.com. And for your renewed and continuing support, CET, we say thank you.
So recognizing the opportunity to build the capacity of leaders of color within their communities, how do you go from recognizing that as a place to invest,
Right.
literally and figuratively, time and money,
Right.
To Good Multiplier?
Right. So the sort of aha moment for me, I was invited to speak at Hairstow. They were hosting Hairstow is a historically Black university here in St. Louis, and they were hosting a youth summit. It was on Saturday morning. So I got on stage and I sort of, did my spiel and I talked, and the kids were like slumped over. It's Saturday morning. Like, who wants to be there, right? And sort of following me was this young African-American nonprofit founder. And part of his, sort of deal was that he's connected with young people and did like youth engagement and leadership development type stuff. And so when he took the stage, rocked the crowd, right? So he had those young people up, right? He had those young people up. They were dancing. He had the DJ going. It was awesome, right? And he came and applied for a grant, and it was terrible.
Okay.
So there was this like what I'd seen, which was awesome, and this amazing connection, and his inability to speak the language of power and to translate that into a grant that could be successful. And so it sort of made me sort of wonder, like, what are we missing out on, and what other gems are we not able to support in our community because people don't have the right language. And it was only because you saw him. Right. So I saw what, what was possible. And so just, spent about 4 months providing feedback, giving him, a different way to think about, giving him language, giving him, have you thought about this question? Right. And, finally got to a point where, he came and sort of shared, this is the new iteration of it. And it was awesome, That's great. And he was able to, to leverage that and get some support from a different foundation. And so the sort of light bulb went off of, well, who else is out there? Right. And how can we take this experience, this one-on-one experience, and aggregate it and create a cohort? So at the time, I'm grateful to the Edpreneur program at UMPSL, who gave me resources, and I know you've been a part of that. Great entrepreneurs coming through the Ed Collabitat setting, and really focusing on entrepreneurs like yourself, social entrepreneurs who want to contribute to their community. Right. So, they connected me and made me part of a community and gave me some resources. And so after going through that, was able to get the first cohort going and got amazing feedback from the graduates.
How did you attract the cohort? How did you attract the folks that became part of that first cohort?
I put it out to my network and word of mouth, and people start reaching out. We did interviews. So inherent in the model is that, we value community. So we hold place and space for people to share. We really value peer learning, and that, there's something that you can gain from the group, and also things that you should, be intentionally giving. Obviously we're focused on equity, and we're intentionally focused on diverse leaders. And I have to sort of put a pin there to say that as I thought about like really what is needed, and what I concluded was that we really need to bolster the nonprofits that are working in communities of color. So there may be people who are not diverse who are doing that work.
Right.
Interesting.
And so how do we help them shore up their efforts if they're still going to be in the same community working?
Interesting.
And so in that first cohort, we did have someone who was not diverse, but was doing criminal justice work, in North City. And I felt that we really needed to support it.
And that's why I would say inclusion does not mean exclusion. There are a lot of great folks doing work in community, and we shouldn't just say you only have to be of color or a woman, to be a part of this. Everybody contributes. So this is great.
Well, and what I heard too is that it really comes down to your core value around it's about the community being served, not necessarily the servant. But recognizing that there are a disproportionate number of servants who are people of color who also lack the capacity to speak the language of power to get the funding in the way that we have deemed identifies you as a suitable investee, a suitable grantee, because you figured out how to answer the questions in the right way.
And that's when people ask this question about, I want to start a nonprofit. And I go back to, we don't need another nonprofit in this community. Well, we need to shore up and get the nonprofits to be more effective. And I think with the work that you're doing, you are supporting those folks. It's just like you said with that young guy that came in. He was effective in what he was doing, but he wasn't effective in actually putting together an application in order to get funding. Right. It goes back to our entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. These are social entrepreneurs.
So we're definitely, as you think about sort of where there's the greatest need, we're intentionally focused on community colors. Again, going back to what you said, Christy, the servant. We set a wide table. We are intentionally focused on diverse leaders, but we recognize that others will be at that table. And I think the other thing is that, from a business model, as we think about our work, we recognize that there are a ton of organizations who sort of are able to kind of stamp and say, like, who's effective. And, as I thought about this, part of how we talk about our impact is that we're helping people support neighborhood level change. So not all of these leaders run organizations that we are going to say you need to replicate and scale, or you need to take this model and export it to other cities. Some of the work that they may be doing may be for a particular community, but it is needed, right? And so as we think about, sort of how we talk about nonprofits, I think that when we think about grassroots or smaller nonprofits, they're typically kind of like, you should just kind of, you're so small, fold into something bigger. But I think sometimes with that mentality, you lose the ability to support, very specific change in neighborhoods. And so, even the biggest nonprofit could not serve everyone. So I really think you need an entire community, which is another reason, as we think about this work, we're intentionally focused on small and grassroots organizations.
So talk to us. Go ahead. I was going to say.
No. We're probably thinking the same thing. So go ahead.
Talk to us about, the process of how the program works. You talked about there's an application, there is a selection process. Then this is 10-month training. Okay. What does that consist of?
It's long and actually
thorough.
Yes, but that was actually a learning from our first cohort, because we really just wanted to beta test it and get something on the books. And they said it's fast and furious, because one of our core values also is efficacy. So what does it look like to give you tools to help you sort of lean in and grow? And our motto is that, like, we don't want to ever be the fellowship where you come, you get a book, you look at it during the session, and then you leave, you put it in your trunk, and you don't think about it until it's time to come back. So as we think about our work, we want it to be practical, tactical, relevant to where you are. So we customize a lot of what we do to kind of meet people where they are. But as I was starting this, I reached out to my network, nonprofit CEOs, executive directors, and said, what are your pain points? And if you could design training, what are the 4 or 5 things that you would want to see included? And then what is that one je ne sais quoi, that one just, cherry on top that you would add? And so, the feedback that we got is the curriculum that we built.
That's awesome. Customer discovery, folks.
Yes. So I recognize also, too, that I am not a subject matter expert in all of these subjects, which is why we invite subject matter experts and amazing people like Christy and are so appreciative to both of you for, supporting the work that we do and helping to elevate and share and, promote, all that we're doing. But we have, like I said, a peer learning community. So we'll do group calls. There's one-on-one coaching where we set goals. There's some accountability. There's some celebration when we hit our goals, awesome. And sort of helping folks to think about going from one level to the next. And then we have targeted, tailored sessions where folks get information and they get time to apply it.
Yes.
So we don't want it to
Which
just
is 10
be
months. It
right.
takes time to apply.
Right. We don't want it to just be, that was a great session today. We want to be able to, for you to walk away with.
So it sounds like it's classroom learning.
Yeah.
It is one-on-one mentoring. Yeah. And I love the part is taking what you're learning and actually doing the application of it.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
So obviously, the focus of Good Multiplier is on the leader that's doing work in community and at neighborhood levels. How do you see the potential for Good Multiplier to also change the conversation on the part of the establishment of the funding industrial complex, for lack of a better... we often talk about the nonprofit industrial complex, but there's a funding industrial complex as well,
I hadn't heard that.
That whole structure there, it
Nice.
has a whole set of norms, right? And stuff.
Should get that trademarked.
All right.
Well, part of our core values is equity. And so how do you give people what they need? How do you think about who gets to show up in communities and provide services? How do you think about how you partner with communities? Mm-hmm. And so part of the conversations that I've been a part of is how can we encourage funders to look at their portfolios, so to look at who their grantees are, to disaggregate that data by race.
Yes.
To understand, as you look kind of geographically, what are the zip codes you're hitting? Which ones are you not? Which ones, quite frankly, do you have to hit because your board or the establishing donor wants it, or a company or organization wants it? So there's always going to be that. But then, how can you sort of look at all of the documents that our community has put forth and say, are we helping to advance this? And then, really, quite frankly, are we just giving to the same people?
Right.
Or are we really looking at need and who's adding value? And probably most importantly, have we ever even asked the community what they want? Or are we prescribing that?
You need some market research.
I wish we had more time to hang out together.
You really? Really?
All of that. Did we do any of our own customer discovery?
That's what I said. Is there any market research being done at all?
Exactly.
One of the questions I wanted, because I think what you're doing is so unique. You're building these folks and their organizations to be more effective, more impactful. Is part of Good Multiplier, because I could actually see you're building them up this way. Is there a way that you can connect them with funding communities so that, now that these folks are in a better position, able to, like you talked about, write the language and be able to seek funds? Are you looking at being what do you call it? Like a matchmaker?
I think yes and no. So I think, we're on our second cohort. We got a call that say, can you come to Kansas City? And so it's like, what would that look like? And so I think what we're trying to do is shore that up. Because as we have conversations nationally, a lot of folks are, sort of saying, are you only St. Louis based? Are you able to, be in other cities? And so we're doing some work now to look at what that could look like. So maybe that's videotaping. Maybe that's
licensing intellectual property.
Yeah.
Train the trainer model.
Yeah. So, so we're thinking about that. Obviously, as we position this work too, inherent in the support is, opening up our networks and really trying to be a connector. So it happens informally. I'm going to kind of chew on your idea to make it even more formal.
Because you have already the networks that exist. You know these folks on the funding side and what they're looking like. And if you are shaping and growing folks in your cohort to be much more stable, to be more attractive to these folks, it could be a nice little opportunity, I think, because it's hard for those guys to even know who should I be talking to. But I think so. It sounds like you guys are looking at going national.
Yeah, I mean, slow walking it, so
scaling
and figuring out what the need is. So I also don't want to be an organization that's building a ton of capacity where there's not need. And so, one thing we try to do is constantly be connected to community. So the conversations nationally have been, exploratory. So we'll see. Okay. I think there's definitely, something to consider there, but.
Or opportunity to train the trainer in different areas, right?
Like that, Kristen.
So like franchise models.
We'll talk.
Right.
Franchise models. Right. I don't know.
As we come to the end of our time together, what are some of the thoughts you would leave with folks who are looking at walking a similar path in terms of identifying the need, seeing their personal passion, wanting to be of service to community and create something that has impact for them personally, but also impact socially?
Yeah. I think one of the kind of powerful things for me has been writing my own personal mission statement. And so sort of really reflecting every day, what is the one thing that I want to be doing? And so once I got super clear about that, so mine is inspiring others. So in my future, I want to be speaking and writing and talking, right? Because I value building others up, which is why I enjoy coaching, which is why I enjoy mentoring, which is why I enjoy really just sort of helping others. And then, sort of more macro, thinking about community, that's something that I value. Like everyone has a thing. And, for some, it may be helping to create, economic opportunity. For some, it may be helping to build self-esteem. So figuring out what that thing is that you're passionate about and getting super clear. And then aligning yourself, your resources, how you're spending your time every day around that thing so that you can feed it and it can grow. So I have to constantly kind of do a gut check, like, am I doing these two things? Am I inspiring others? Am I transforming communities? If the answer is yes, then I'm living on mission and on purpose. So
while she's also balancing family.
Yeah.
Because Desiree has a family, has 2 girls?
2 girls. 2 cute little girls.
Yeah, 2 young girls. So she's out there doing it. And so don't say that it can't be done.
Yeah.
But get super clear.
Absolutely.
Super clear, super focused.
And you had a role model with Marva Collins.
Yeah.
You are the next role model for somebody else, which is absolutely fantastic.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. We know you're very busy and changing and transforming communities. So it's always a pleasure to spend time with you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Super fun. Thank you.
Changing the way you view new ventures, igniting your thinking about entrepreneurship. It's Entrepreneurially Thinking. Get connected and discover more. Visit our website for show notes, resources, information about our guests, upcoming events, and of course, all your favorite episodes. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them for us in the comment sections, and be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The best way to show love is to share. Let everybody know that you're thinking entrepreneurially. So visit our website, entrepreneuriallythinking.com. #ETHINKSTL. Entrepreneurially Thinking is another positive production of Rare Gem Productions. Thanks for listening.